Hello everyone, it's been a while since I've made a video because the last video was a little bit disappointing as the Canadian Premier League fantasy kind of got axed, and I haven't really done anything with the channel since then because uh, I didn't have anything to go on, no preseason videos, and obviously there's not a season to make them. That's what this account was based off of, was Canadian Premier League fantasy. And I really enjoyed making the videos. I've been trying to find something else, but I didn't want to do the English Premier League. There's so many people that do this, and I kind of felt, I mean, it would still be enjoyable for me to do it, but I don't think it would reach anyone. Even in the long term, there are just people with hundreds of thousands of followers that do this, and I even watch them, and that's how I got interested in doing this. But I thought, what's one league that I'm very passionate about that also has it? And for the longest time, there was a Serie fantasy, but it was basically a pay-to-win one where if you paid money, you can get coins and get extra abilities kind of thing when you run your fantasy team. And I didn't really like that idea at all. But I did just get brought across one that runs pretty darn similar to the Premier League. It doesn't look like there's any advantages to spending actual money or anything. The point system seem relatively the same, a couple different point alterations, maybe +1 or -1 for something that happens different. But overall, and it does have chips as well, which is kind of cool. So overall, it seems pretty legit, and I'm happy to try to make some content on that. I'm not going to do any more preseason because this season does start in 2 days. But I will be going over my team hopefully weekly. I'm going to try not to miss any game weeks. And we'll see if maybe this is something I can take off. I do have every intention, if a fantasy for Premier League or fantasy for Canadian Premier League ever comes back, I think I would jump back over to that or do both. And I'll be keeping the team name Forged in Fire, but I'm going to be changing some of the handles and stuff just to maybe make it easier to find as far as people that are interested in doing Serie fantasy, which is what I will try to be covering now. And so, as I said, this league does start in 2 days. I'll try to quickly make a league, and if anyone wants, I'll try to add a link in the description below, and if people want to join, just have fun. And hopefully the people that were watching for the CPL stuff, if you want to join this too, it's fun. If you're really just into fantasy soccer in general like I am, hopefully you find this interesting. It is on the website called fantaliveserie.com. There's also an app for it, so it is pretty legit. As far, I mean, people will say there's an app for everything, but it does seem to be somewhat established. A lot more people have joined it. I forget how many. I did end up looking to see how many people there are. I forget right now. But yeah, we're going to get this started. I'm going to talk about the team that I think I have made going into game week 1 and why I've made these choices. Okay, so that'll bring us right to the start here, and you can see my starting 11 pretty well. It's a little cut off, just the way that the interface looks. It's not maybe as clear cut as the Premier League fantasy, but as you can see, and I try to use some of the tactics I use for the English game to bring it into here, because I did Italian fantasy, remember, on that other crappy site a while ago, and I did really well in it. But I think now that I know way more about fantasy football, then I think it's going to go a lot better now. So knowing that, the goal is generally try to get a keeper that's not taking up too much of your budget. And there were a couple 4.5, I think they use euros. I don't know what I'm going to say million. I'm going to use the term million just so it's what is it, more all-encompassing, like a lot of people use the million. So I'm just going to say a million. So I'm going to say 4.5 million goalkeepers here. And there was one on Cagliari, on Salernitana was one. There are a couple other of the small teams that are normally the ones that don't do as well in Serie A. And so Cagliari and Cragnell, he is a goalie that I've heard of, very familiar in the league. And I can assume that maybe there's not going to be a lot of clean sheet points, but they may be, I think Cagliari might be one of the better, not so great teams that has the potential to pick up a clean sheet at some point and hopefully get a lot of save points against the better teams. And that's like, if you do play the English game, a lot of people you see picking Sanchez this year. And that's again because he's a $4.5 million goalkeeper. He has a team, he's on a team that has the potential to get clean sheets, and will get save points because better teams are going to be shooting a lot more against them. Not all of them are going to go in, probably less will go in than get stopped. So that's the idea here. We're not looking to spend a lot of money on a keeper from a top team that would take up a spot on that team. Remember, 3 players from a team is the max. And at that point, yeah, and then backing up, you try to get a goal. You try to have a goalie that you're just not gonna, you're just gonna play game week in, game week out kind of thing. And there aren't a lot of sources to go to for starting goalies, and I might be changing things up tomorrow if I get some information. So always know that these videos, not everything's set in stone. But I did see on a site called RotoWire, which I've used it before. It's not always extremely accurate by any means, but it's the best thing I had to go off of right now. And Zoet, who I believe is used to play in the Dutch league. I don't know if it's the same one, maybe it's a different one, but he is pegged to start as a 4 million goalkeeper. So that's one I think everyone should have as their second bench goalkeeper option, because if he does show he starts, that value will definitely go up. And if you see as a Spezia goalie, who's again not a great team, it's not a team that you're going in thinking they're for sure getting a shutout. But if you have Spezia facing a newly promoted team and Cagliari is facing AC Milan, Inter Milan, Juventus, well, it might almost be worth starting him and maybe having a better chance at that clean sheet than Cragnell would. Okay, so that's my goalkeeper situation. Then we go to our back 4. And personally, again, this is my first time playing Serie A fantasy, and while I'm a Juventus fan at heart. Before, like, I play the English Premier League game because it's an official one. That's what all my friends play and stuff, and I do follow it and get to know a lot of the players that way. Sure, but Juventus is my team. If I were to say one European team, Juventus is my team. So I am relatively familiar with the Serie A. But on some of the smaller teams, I don't necessarily know who starts or not. And I know most of these players, if not all of them, none of them are really from smaller teams, I guess. But I wanted to pick players that I were like almost 100% sure they're going to start, so I don't have to use an early wild card. And I wanted to try to get some attacking defenders as well. And so, yes, it's a little more expensive of a defense that I'd like. I'd like to have more of that money up top. I think going into, especially my first season, I need to early wildcard into some and then get cheaper defenders there so then I can see which defenders are starting. And for now, I'll try to take that risk of spending more money in the defense and hoping that my attackers that maybe aren't as much as some people will have can still do their jobs as well. So on defense, I have Mela, who had an amazing Euro Cup with Denmark, I believe it was. He was played very attacking in a defensive position, so I'm hoping he carries that over to Atalanta. Bastoni is he started a couple games for Italy during Euro, but I know on Inter he's a pretty solid defender. I don't really know how to pronounce this. Kjaer, I think, another Danish defender who he started every game for Denmark. I assume he's going to be starting every game or most games for AC Milan. And Mario Rui, another fast, pacey wingback that I'm hoping will be starting for Napoli and get forward as well. So you do try to get those wing backs in fantasy because they are the ones that normally end up pressing more up the field than the center backs. But I also need that reliability of playing, and that's why Kjaer and Bastoni are in there, because for me, I see them playing whenever they're fit to play, and they're on teams that should be getting me clean sheets at the end of the day against most teams that they play when they're not playing each other. Then my last one is Karsdorp that I go to, and Roma did seem to have a good line of fixtures at the start. And then so they're facing Fiorentina first, which I'd consider to be a lower mid-table team. So that's why I'm starting him off, and he's probably out of all the defenders I picked the least confident I'm in actually starting in the first team. So I'm just going to start with him off in first bench position though. And that rounds out my defense. So I'd say I think Karsdorp is relatively attacking as well. So I think out of 3 out of my 5 defenders have the potential to get some attacking returns. And then mainstays, Kyer and Bastoni, I think they're reliable to start. And they're on teams that I could see getting me a clean sheet. Moving into the defense, we have Barela, Rebic, and Chiesa starting this week for game week 1. I was really flirting between Chiesa and Zielinski. I do like Napoli's fixtures to start better than Juventus's. But Chiesa he was the complete engine of the Italian national team that won the Euro Cup. And it found like everything that was happening went through him. Now, I know Juventus has players that Italy doesn't, and they have players that can create as well. But I do think Chiesa is an up-and-coming, I don't know if superstar is the right word. I'm not going to try to put him on the same pedestal as Messi or something. But I do think that he's going to be a complete breakout player that sets himself in a elite category of Serie, let's say. And that might cause him to end up moving on to a different league. And I hope not, because I really like him. But I think he is not peaked yet in his ability by any means. And I think he's only going to get better. And I think now he's going to get some significantly consistent minutes as well. Rebic, I know has had a few good seasons with Milan now, and I have a friend that supports AC Milan, consistently saw him talking about how great he was, all the returns that he's getting. So I'm going with him as well. Again, to start the season, not a whole lot for me to go on. I'll get more detailed and stuff, hopefully, as I learn more about them. And then Barela, again, another player that did really well for the Italian national team. He scored a couple goals there, and I'm hoping that his role with Inter is relatively consistent with that. And and I see no reason if he's starting for the national team, why he won't be starting for the club team in Inter Milan as well. My last player for that on the bench is Palisic, who again, Atalanta has been such a fun team to watch the last couple years, and he's been a big part of that as well. And he's a cheaper defender, and I actually really wish that they showed the price tags underneath him, because it makes more sense talking about it. So I might have to find a way to do that, or at least write them down so I can reference it. But Palisic was one of the cheaper options as well. And honestly, it was really hard to pick this starting 11. I'm almost wondering if I'll end up putting Palisic in for one of my defenders as well. But it's hard to put him over. Napoli should get a clean sheet against Venezia. All of these teams really should. And I like the fact that Mela is going to potentially get attack returns as a defender, which is more points than if Palisic got one. But I might come to regret that later. I might even put Palisic up into that first bench spot. To be truly honest, now that I'm thinking of it, I'll probably just make that change right now there, because I think that I could end up regretting sitting him on the bench to start in game week 1. And then lastly, that brings us to our attackers. And Ronaldo is the most expensive player in this game, 13.5. And I promise that I'm not a Ronaldo fanboy. I actually very much disliked him when he played for Real Madrid. And I was kind of disappointed that he came here, because then I kind of had to cheer for him. And of course, he's done great things for as far as scoring plenty of goals on Juve. And basically everything ends up going through him at the end of the day, which is why you have to have him. He's on penalties for sure. And I think I've seen I don't know, maybe missed 1 or 2 since he's been on Juve entirely. I could be wrong. That's an estimate, but and even if he misses, he's not getting them taken away from him. So that's a big thing, that mostly all of the attacking goes through Ronaldo. Everyone knows Ronaldo's history. He's reliable for the most part. Yes, he's on his way down. He's not what he was when he was on his glory days at Real Madrid, but he's still a huge impact player in Serie A. And it's basically, for me, you have to have Ronaldo just like you have to have Salah or Fernandez in the English Premier League. So that's why I have him. He's going to get my captain's armband probably more often than not. And that, again, is not me trying to be a biased Juventus fan. That is literally just that he's the marquee player in the league. This is the reason that he's a big reason why Serie A has been hyped up again. I'd say it's probably the second most popular league in the world right now. And he's a big reason why, because of his talent level. I do have Giroud in here, and I think he's going to be a starter. It looks like Ibrahimovic is either injured or something's happening there. I'm not exactly sure. I'm not up to date on that. But Giroud, I think, will be starting over Leao. And if not, that's what I'm wondering. I think they might be rumored to have another striker coming in. I'm not exactly sure. But for me, it makes more sense that Giroud is going to be the starter coming up to this season, because I think he's significantly better than Leao. And once Ibra gets better, though, then that's going to be a transfer that's going to have to be made relatively soon, because I don't think they're going to be playing both together, as they're both older strikers. So I'm assuming it'll be like a 60-30 split games for both of them, whether one starts or the other starts. And another one, unfortunately, Inter, despite winning the title last year, has just been absolutely picked apart. Some of their players that prove that they were great, they haven't been able to hold on to. They lost Lukaku to Chelsea. It looks like they might lose Lautaro Martinez. And it's really unfortunate that such a great league still can't hold their players, even though they won the title with that team. But it looks like Dzeko is going to be the number one option, and he's just been transferred in this year as well. And so it's a little risky going with Giroud and Dzeko, as picking players that have just came to the teams game week 1 is not always the best strategy. But I'm going to put them in. I do think, just based on the other strikers they have to choose from, they're going to make the most sense to start. And that's what I'm going off of. I did forget to mention, I forgot that I'm using all 3 strikers. So Lopez is another midfielder. It's just someone to fill that extra bit of money. And again, I looked, and he seems to be one of the 5 million midfielders that might actually get a start on their team. So just there to cover some points. I'm not really planning on using him anytime soon. Maybe I will, depending on what the fixtures are like. I like to play the fixtures. But yeah, other than that, he's just kind of filling a spot right now. And after game week 1, we'll see who starts, and maybe after a couple of game weeks, to just make sure it's consistent. And then we can start making more sense of what players we want to go to, maybe dropping some of these defenders for cheaper options on the same team to make more money for the forwards, because that's where all the expensive things are. That's where I really wanted Insigne, but couldn't find the money for him right now, at least. And yeah, like, it was a hard choice, because I ended up, okay, I can't get Insigne, I'll get Zelinski instead. I was like, no, I need Chiesa on my teams. I really do feel like I should have another Napoli player on this team, and I just don't know who I'd want to take out to make room for that. But yeah, let me know how you like this. If you like this, please join the league, and hopefully, moving on to a different fantasy, we'll go up from here. Okay, because I do enjoy making these videos. Please like and subscribe if you can, to help me out to get this thing growing. And hopefully, even with this, maybe Serie will one day get an actual affiliated fantasy team as well, because it does wonders for the Premier League game. So I don't understand why more leagues don't do the same. Anyway, thank you for watching. And I'll talk to you. I'm probably just going to do the 1 video per week for now, until we see where we're going. But again, this will be posted on the Instagram account, which I'm going to change the handles of and everything, and I'll make announcements on there, and the Twitter. And I'm also going to post on the Instagram and Twitter my results for English Premier League fantasy every week, but I'm not going to be making videos for that, but just to be with that community as well. Okay, have a great night, and I will talk to you soon.